Hi, Jesse Williams, Harvesting Product Specialist for Case IH. We're out on the farm today and I've got our 8230 out of the shed, and we're going to go through and zero out our concaves and calibrate our concaves. So that's something I typically recommend to customers that we do on a yearly basis before we go to the field in the fall. That way any wear that we've got on those rasp bars, any wear that we've got on those concaves, we zero them back out, we calibrate them, and then when I set that concave clearance in the cab, that's what it should be at if we come down here and measure it. So we're going to walk through what it takes to run through and calibrate your concaves. Pretty simple procedure overall. We've gone in, I've taken the number 3 separation grade on the left-hand side out of this machine. I'm going to shift my rotor gearbox into neutral. Now it's easy for me to spin my rotor over by hand. Then I'm going to take an 18mm wrench. I'm going to break loose both of my jam nuts on my stop bolts. And I'm going to back both of these off about 7 turns. Now next what I'll do is I'll get in the cab. Really works good if you've got a helper to help you. Sit in the cab, key on, and bump that concave clearance switch down while you spin the rotor over by hand until we hit that point where we're just rubbing on those rasp bars. So you can see now as that rotor is spinning over, we're just rubbing every now and then on a rasp bar. So that's what we want to see. We want to find that point where we've got just a little bit of a rub. And then we want to check. We should have a rasp bar rubbing at the front. We should see that they're rubbing a little bit at the back. And then we're going to look to right down there at the bottom at that 6 o'clock position. That's where we should see those rasp bars rubbing. If we find that our concaves aren't level front to back, we can adjust that with this turnbuckle up here. We can raise or lower the back of the concaves to level them out. Now if you got a mid-range machine, procedure is pretty much the same, except your adjustment for leveling is on the front and not the back. But otherwise your procedure for zeroing them out is going to be the same. So once we found that point, we're going to thread both of our bolts back down until they touch the hanger. I'm going to take a Sharpie. I'm going to put a reference mark on both my bolts. I'll jump back up in the cab now. I'm going to open those concaves up a little bit. So after we open our concaves back up a little bit, we want to come down 2 full turns with these stop bolts. And we're going to lock them down. So what we've done is we found the point where we got a little bit of contact between the rasp bars and the concaves. We've opened the concaves up a little bit. We've added just 2 turns of these bolts. So if I close my concaves all the way down to 0, I've got just a little bit of clearance between the concave and the rasp bar, so that we're not going to rub between the concave and the rasp bar when the machine's running. So we'll take a look in the back of the machine here, and you can kind of see down here at the bottom where that rasp bar closest point is right there at that pinch point in the center. It's got just a little bit of air gap down there. So after we found our 0 point with our concaves, we've set our stop bolts down there. We're going to come back in the cab. We're going to go to our calibration tab, select our drop down, and do our concave opening. So when I hit OK, it says working, and it takes a few minutes. What it's going to do is it's going to open those concaves all the way up, close them all the way down, figure out its working range, and set the 0 point when it hits those stop bolts. So we just got our calibration complete on that calibration. So we should be zeroed out on our concaves now. So we're going to set them at 10, and then we'll jump out and we'll take our sieve gauge and we'll check and see how close we are on that calibration. So to check that calibration, we can use our sieve gauge. It's got the 11 millimeter step on there. We set it to 10, so that's going to be fairly close. And it's just a little bit snug when I put it between that rasp bar and that pinch point. Come a little bit this way, it's loose, and go that way, it's loose. So we've got our pinch point in the center where we want it to be. We're zeroed out, and when we set that concave clearance in the cab now, it's actually going to be where it's showing that it is in the cab. So that's going to give us good performance out of our machine.